All right, I'm going to call this Finance Committee to order. Looks like we have a quorum here. First, I will move to approve the minutes of February 26, 2024.
Second.
All right. Any discussion on the minutes? No, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, that passes. Now, we have one ordinance and three resolutions. First, we're going to talk about the ordinance, which is about the transfer and advances, quarterly transfers and advances. It's ordinance number 7-2024. It's pretty run-of-the-mill. We'll have Director Renketor go through that for us real quick. And if anybody on the dais has any questions, feel free to ask. Director Renketor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The first item that we have is ordinance 07-2024, and these are transfers made as part of the transfer ordinance. They're routine in nature, and they were planned as part of the 2024 budget. These transfers include movements from the water and sewer funds to cover our debt payments, and there also includes the transfers from the general fund that help fund the aging and the Winterhurst funds. So that's this ordinance. It's the same. It'll be the same one that we'll pass in the third quarter. We usually try to leave the second and third quarters alone. The first quarter, sometimes we have some advances to pay back. Those might look a little different, and at the end of the year, sometimes there's some different things we'll do to adjust some things as we get at the end of the year to clean up the books as we close the year end. But that's pretty much the second quarter. Don't see any reason that we would anticipate a change at this point.
Great, thank you very much. Any questions, committee members? Any questions from anybody else? All right, I'll move to recommend ordinance 7-2024 for approval by full council. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Next is we have three resolutions, 2024-17 through 2024-19, having to do with the tax budget and some advances from the county. If you want to go ahead, Director Renketor, I expect that you have some sort of presentation, and we'll go from there. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I was going to talk about resolutions 2024, 18, and 19 first, and then there's a little bit more of a presentation for 17. I was going to, save the best for last, or whatever you want to call that.
Sounds good to me.
We have these three resolutions to discuss for 2025, all of which focus on our need and intention to levy property tax for the 2025 calendar year. And this legislation is required by the revised code in order to levy property taxes on an annual basis for the 2025 calendar year. And without the passage of the resolutions and delivery specifically to the county fiscal officer by July 15th, the city wouldn't be able to legally levy our property taxes. So these are important for that reason. The property tax is a really important component of our budget. It includes the regular property tax that is collected locally by the county auditor. We also include in that the homestead and rollback functions of that come from the state of Ohio. We usually get those a little bit later. That represents about 20% of the 2024 general fund budget. So it's a significant percentage. And just as a reminder, there's many municipalities in the area and really throughout the state that rely heavily on the municipal income tax. And Lakewood's not an exception, but our level of contribution from the property tax relative to the other sources of the general fund budget is very significant, and it provides really a level of diversification in our overall revenue portfolio that is comforting to the investment community. So when we go out for our bond rating, they really like seeing the portion that we have that comes from the property tax, and that helps us maintain good interest rates on our debt. The other thing I just want to point out is we haven't adjusted our tax rates for property tax since 2003, and that's a great thing to not have to raise taxes, and we're certainly not proposing any changes to that for the 2025 tax collection year. So that's resolution. Well, okay, so I'll go ahead and I'll talk a little bit about resolution 2024-18 then, and if I could, if you could, Mr. Sofko, there we go. So there's the rates that he's got up there. So this is, I was going to talk about 2024-18, and this legislation shows the taxes to be levied in calendar year 2025. It includes a total of 17.4 mills, and you can see that 3.47 goes to debt service, and the remaining 13.93 mills go to pay or fund the general fund. That's 8.65 mills. And then there's a police pension levy for 1.6 mills, a fire pension levy 1.68, and a sewer and capital levy for 2 mills. Our overall tax structure, I mean, it's really proved to be stable, sustainable. Again, I said, I think the last tax increase was in 2003, and there was just a minor adjustment by 1/10 of a mil back then. In any event, the property taxes on this resolution just tell the Cuyahoga County Budget Commission that these taxes are necessary for Lakewood and for our revenue stream, and it certifies them to the county fiscal officers so that they could put them on what they call the 2024 tax duplicate for collection in 2025. And that's kind of sums up 2024-18.
Great. Director Rankator, I just want to make sure that I have some things clear. So, so I understand it, the overall tax, property tax rate or property millage that a property owner in Lakewood is going to see is about 84.05 mils, right? So like for every $100,000 of valuation of your property, that's about $8,400 in property taxes. Is that calculation correct?
I'd have to look at the tax duplicate to see what I think you're talking about the total.
Total, I'm
millage
talking about
for the
total
whole
millage.
district. So
Yeah.
I'd have to double check and see what those levels are. And that includes, there's a gross millage and an effective millage.
Right.
So the gross millage includes some of the taxes that have reduction factors on them. Those are largely through like school districts. Most all of the other levies have those. Ours are predominantly either by charter or inside mills, what they call. So ours work a little different. When the values go up, the property taxes go up completely in sync. That's not necessarily the case for a lot of other levies. When the property values go down, we go down in sync. Some of the different school districts and other agencies, the design is such that they have these reduction factors attached to them, so that's equalized, what they call the Department of Tax Equalization gives new rates every year, and when the values go up, they kind of reduce the overall millage so that they kind of bring in the same amount that they've always brought in.
Right, like with the schools, if the property valuations go up, even though the millage stays the same, there's reduction factors going back to when the actual levy was passed, right? So let's just say as it stands, if it's 84.05 mills, we do 17.4 goes to the city. That's what we're responsible for, or that's what we pass. That's what our charter says. The county, about 19.03 mills. Schools, 46.07 mills, and the libraries, smallest, 1.54. So really, the schools account for, depending on, let's say millage rate, not necessarily the effective tax rate, because that changes depending on when the levy was passed and things like that. 50%
let's see, 54% of your property tax bill to schools. 23% of it goes to county things like the metro parks, and it's included in that. Health and Human Services levy is going to be included in that. And what we put forth is about 21% of your property tax bill. So if I understand the math, because people hear millage and they get confused, they're not necessarily sure how to calculate that. So for every $100,000, let's say generally, without any homestead exemptions, things like that, of your effective tax rate, that'd be $1,740 per $100,000 of valuation, right?
Mhm.
And just putting in perspective, because we hear that a lot, right? We have high taxes in Lakewood and things like that. Well, what the municipality, what we control really is the income tax. And that's been, what, 2.5% for almost ever now?
1.5%
What is it?
since 1981.
Since 1981. And, yeah, before I was born. But the property tax, right, 17, right, it's 17.4. I mean, it's what we contribute, and that pretty much goes into our debt service. It goes into a lot of important things for the city, but that's only about, property taxes really is only about 19% of our budget comes from property taxes. And you see the big raises that comes from the school levies that citizens of Lakewood vote for, county levies that citizens of Lakewood vote for. So when people talk about raising taxes going up, pretty much any raise in taxes either property tax has to do with, one, property values going up, and two, voting yes on levies. So, just putting that out there. Thank you, Director. We can move on from that little context. Yeah.
One quick question, Mr. Chair, to Director Rancourt. Do other agencies have to go through the same process of ratifying this? And this is something I've seen it many times now, and thank you for your work keeping us on the ball. But do other agencies go through the same process of ratifying this?
Yes. So I was, formerly worked in the county as chief deputy, and I would collect everybody's resolutions throughout the county, and you can't levy the tax unless you have it. It's part of documentation that needs to get sent off to the Department of Tax Equalization. If they don't have it, they're liable not to levy your tax. So that's why these are very important.
Yeah, good. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
My long interruption, you may continue.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was going to move along to 2024-19, and this relates to the payments in advance of the real estate settlement. So twice annually, the city is scheduled to receive its real estate payments from the county fiscal officer. So normally we'll get them in the settlements in March and August. Instead of receiving just these two payments, we traditionally request that we get advances of the real estate settlement. And these represent property taxes that have been paid to the county that are accumulating in their undivided tax collection fund. Administratively, the county develops a schedule for the subdivisions in which they traditionally just set dates for which they'll make these payments that will get in advance of the settlement. As you know, during the settlement process, everybody's always paying their property tax at a certain point. Some people pay at the beginning, some people pay at the end, some people pay after the due date. So the money's always kind of coming in. So they have a couple of dates that they have on the calendar before the final settlement happens. So that's what this is. This is great because we're able to manage our cash flow better, take our money and we invest it, and it's good if we can have our money to invest it, because that helps us pay for other things, you know, whether it's into the general fund where it gets credited, or also to some other funds, you know, capital or the water funds also. So that's about it with respect to the payments in advance. It's something I think we always want to do, because it's an important cash flow tool for us as a community.
So, in other words, basically the county, if I got this right, the county is holding on to the property tax money that residents of Lakewood, homeowners of Lakewood are paying, and we want to get that money before, you know, all accounts are settled, because, you know, if you have a mortgage and it's an escrow, you know, they draw on it every now and then, pay at certain different times for everybody. Instead of waiting until everything is all settled and paid, we get it on certain dates that they just disperse it to us.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
It's a, you know, the other thing I just mentioned, nobody really brought up yet, or I didn't mention it, is, you know, in 2025, we're going to see the effects of the sexennial appraisal. So we may see a boost in the property tax. Seems like the values have gone up considerably over the last 3 years again. So, you know, I might see, you know, 10, 15% rise again in property values in Lakewood.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Yeah.
thanks for this discussion. And Director Rankator and Finance team, thanks for the legislation as always, and also the tax budget that was shared before the meeting by email, I believe. I don't know if that's available on the record committee or in on the full docket tonight, perhaps. But at any rate, it's a helpful discussion all the time. Could you review what you just said about the timing of what's the normal calendar, because it's confusing to those of us who are not professional accountants. In a given year, a property owner pays the tax in a certain year. So people who own property in Lakewood this year pay the county property tax. Is it for the current year, for the previous year? And then when does the valuation happen, and when does the valuation take effect? I think rather than me guess the answer, it'd just be great to get that clearly recapped so we all understand.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Bullock asked a great question to make sure everybody understands. So we'll get this property tax collection twice a year, usually in the spring and the fall. March, August is when the scheduled settlement dates are, and the county just kind of puts them on the calendar and schedules them. Remember the first year I was here during COVID, everything got pushed back, 6-8 weeks, so everybody had some extra time to pay. But that's the schedule, and the money is always coming in. So as people begin paying, there'll be those couple of advance payments that we'll be able to get in advance of that, in both the the spring and the fall payments, or the one that's probably more towards the summer actually. The sexennial appraisal will be going on. They're probably working on it right now dutifully at the county, and by the time October rolls around, we'll probably all have they'll probably have determined what the new values will be for all the different communities and homes, and they'll get those out to all the homeowners in the communities to tell, that'll give us an idea of where our budget can be for the 2025 also.
So those October 2024 appraisals will update the county's valuation, and those will take effect when?
For 2025 is when they
January
take
1,
effect.
2025?
Yes.
Okay, so then from that point forward, people will be paying in January 25. Are they paying tax year 25 taxes, or are they paying the previous year? There's a lag, isn't there, is what I'm driving at.
Yeah, they always call it the 2024 taxes that you'll collect in 2025. I don't know that it really matters that much. You just always remember that every 3 years they're going to do something, to change the values. And really every year, the values change somewhat just because there's activity that goes on and off the tax duplicate with different properties that might be improved, different properties might come on if there's some kind of
From the city's
development.
perspective, there's fluctuation. So,
Sure.
but the new property tax valuation that'll hit this October and take effect next January 1, people won't have to pay until 2026, and the city won't see that. I seem to
So-
have that wrong.
Yeah, it'll actually happen in '25. So they're doing it
Okay.
now, and then when they're done, probably they'll have our values figured
Okay,
out
I think I
October,
understand.
November, December.
So they'll say the payments you're making in '25 for the '24 tax year
Mhm.
have to conform to the new valuation.
Yes, they'll,
Okay,
yep.
now I got you. Okay. Thank you. Yep.
Go ahead, Director.
So the last one, we prepared a little bit of a presentation for Resolution 2024-17. This is the tax budget. Guess I just want to kick off. I don't know that it necessarily kicks off the budget process. Maybe it does statutorily. It doesn't have a whole lot of significance other than I'd say this is more of a creature of statute more than anything. It, again, just like the other ordinances, it establishes that there's going to be a need within the city's budget to levy the property tax, and we're incorporating it into our budget so that the county can see, yeah, Lakewood definitely needs the property tax in order to fulfill their needs of the community inside the budget. So we usually begin our budget planning in July, and by the time August runs around, I'm sure we'll be in full swing in budget preparation. Of significance in what we prepared. So there's a number of schedules that are up there that we kind of prepared and we pushed out. And of course, you saw the property taxes. And I don't know if Mr. Sofko can kind of show us like the next screen. There's the levies there and the amounts that we estimate that'll be from that levy. We're kind of conservative at this point with the estimates that these levies will bring in. Generally, in the last couple of years, we'll have gotten 96.3% of the current collections is what we've been collecting at. This past year, I think in aggregate, we might have ended up with collection close to or over 100% just because there's some delinquent tax on there also. So that's been, a positive thing that we've seen happen that I don't think that was happening, when I first got here in 2020. So that's nice to be able to see the collections come in at that level. So you can see these are long-standing levies that we've had here for a long time. And in terms of diversification, it definitely helps us out. And it's a very significant part of our budget. So if we kind of move on to the next part of the tax budget, we just kind of put together the budget with some assumptions, and we have the property taxes, of course, built in. And really, in this, the property taxes are set out on its own for illustrative purposes, really for the county, so that they know, hey, these guys need their property taxes. Without it, they're going to be in bad shape. So we definitely incorporate the property tax into the budget. For this, we just made some very general assumptions moving forward. We looked at what the numbers that were included in the 2024 budget as kind of where we figured we'd end the year at, and then we kind of used those numbers as we put this budget together. We assumed maybe a 3% wage increase for the employees when we did that. It's probably like a 4% increase just generally for overall inflation. And when we put this together, that's what we do. With the county, I think the important thing that they're going to look for is that, one, we did it and we passed it, and there's not going to be any negatives in our budget. So that's always really important that they look for, because you have to have your budget show a positive number, or else you'll get in trouble for that. But that's kind of the drill for us. They'll issue us like this, you know, I say you got to be positive. They issue us like a do not exceed certificate. That means we didn't exceed our available funds. We just didn't go in the negative. We're not going to do that. We're always, you know, if we have to, we know there's a couple funds we have to fund, the CDBG, and at the end of the year to make sure that, you know, those stay positive.
All right, are there any questions on that? Well, I would just first move to include the tax budget in the minutes.
Second.
Right. Any discussion on that? All those in favor?
Aye.
Are there any questions about this exciting issue? Two. Yeah. So we were just kind of looking and kind of, you know, having a sidebar about, you know, the levies that passed way back in 1958, 1959. They indicate that they are charter/pension. One indicates charter. So I pulled up the charter and just, I guess, for everybody's edification. Charter under 5.10, and it's just of interest because we're going through a charter review currently. So the 510 dictates how and how much we can do property tax levies and provide certain purposes. For example, for the sewage, on subsection C is levy for certain municipal improvements. It looks like cannot exceed 2 mills outside the levies provided in 510A. So really, we have a max millage for that tax levy of 2 mills. Is that correct?
Yes.
And if ever, because that's a big discussion in Lakewood now, is our IWIP program, which of course involves increases in water utility rates and sewage rates, that in order to raise a property tax levy on that, that would have to be a charter change, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And same thing with everything else on here. It looks like we cannot, just in general, cannot exceed by a vote of council 5.2 mils on property tax according to A total. Is that right?
Yes. The only exception would be the debt service fund, which is the inside mill. So
Is it
every
inside?
taxing district is allowed to have 10 inside mills. We kind of share ours mostly. Probably the school districts getting the lion's share of those, and they're just kind of divvied up by the county. If we wouldn't claim our 3.7 mills, technically some other subdivision could ask the county for them and get them. So, yeah, we'll make sure we get that, because that helps pay for our debt. And if we couldn't pay for our debt, we'd probably be in a little bit of trouble. So
Right.
that's good. It's a good, you know, it's a unique thing we have. We talk to the investment community when we meet with them on our debt each year, whether we're taking out notes or we're going out for bonds. And you know, not a lot of communities have these kind of funds. Our forefathers really kind of contemplated that we would need, you know, this mechanism to help fund ourselves. And you know, just being here, it's kind of interesting to see how well this has worked out between our income tax and our property tax. I mean, there hasn't been a huge need to move those in a long time, and that's, you know, that's really atypical of most communities. You know, a lot of communities have raised taxes, especially income tax has gone like crazy in some municipalities, and ours has just been the same.
I would say that that's a pattern that suburbs are seeing, because as suburbs expanded out from the inner ring of the cities and become more residential instead of business and don't have a lot of other income, those deferred maintenance of, not that we deferred our maintenance on sewer or water, but it's something that we had to take care of, that a lot of cities cannot afford to update their sewer and water infrastructure. So people keep moving out and out and out and further, creating new communities, and then those. So you're seeing there was an article, and it was really interesting to see just the migration of people going further and further out from cities because suburbs just collapse on top of themselves if they're not careful because of the deferred maintenance and not having other income sources besides for income tax and residential things. So, thank you. With that, if there's no other questions, I'm going to move to recommend Resolution 2024-17, 2024-18, and 2024-19 for approval by the full council.
Second.
Any further discussion on that?
One quick question, Mr. Chairman. What's on screen here, the budget, the tax budget that we're about to send to the county, in the third column, that's a projection based on our best educated guess for the new valuation, and that could change depending on how those numbers shake out in October, and then we'd update this. Is that right?
Definitely. So when October, November comes, we'll definitely have to adjust those.
Do these numbers assume flat valuation, or did you incorporate a riser of some level?
There's a small increase in there,
Okay.
maybe like 5% is what
Okay.
we incorporated.
So this is
in
a
there.
conservative estimate
Very.
of what we anticipate will actually come out in October, but we'll definitely talk again after those numbers come out.
Yes.
Okay,
Yep.
thank you. All right, thanks, Mr. Chair.
All right, any further discussion? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
All right, that passes. Thank you very much. Finance meeting is adjourned. Thank you.